What is global justice? Global justice means that every person, everywhere in the world, is born with the same rights. This means that everyone should have equal access to basic needs such as food, water, shelter, and healthcare, and that everyone is entitled to the same universal rights, like the right to a safe place to live and work, the right to an education, the right to freedom of expression, the right to move freely, and the right to their identity. It also means that everyone should have the power to make decisions that affect their daily lives. People experience injustice when their human rights are denied. Very often, the causes of these injustices lie in systems outside of a person's control. In this video, we will explore what injustice looks like for people in Somalia, Guatemala, and the occupied Palestinian territory. And we will also explore the roots of that injustice. In Somalia, many people are facing injustice. Years of conflict means that many civilians have faced displacement and violence. And now people in this extremely dry country are also being impacted by the worst effects of climate change. Climate change has caused the rains to fail for several seasons in a row, resulting in the worst drought for 40 years, causing crops to fail and millions of farm animals to die. Now there is a serious food crisis, which has left almost half the population experiencing severe food shortages and unbearable hunger. 8-year-old Nashtea and her family and hundreds of thousands of other people across Somalia are left with no choice but to leave their home, often walking for days to reach camps where they can access life-saving emergency aid like food, water, shelter, and emergency medical care. Ambio is Nashtea's mother.
walaay dhan baa abaartii oo walaay bagaleen dameerna meelis leen dhimaday irin meelis leen leeday beerna sidii meel yeeleen abaarsatay maylka noolada madan noolada inta wuu ku weydiiyay oglaadada fariid intii noorin mugo nafta meel ardayda ka soo
We are all part of the global economic system, which is built on high consumption of fossil fuels like oil, gas and coal. This is causing climate change, which is having a devastating impact in countries like Somalia. The people that are least responsible for climate change are suffering its most serious effects.
abaaro kale walay leeday waana saasataa isku roognay hantada aniga laan walay arday nin roogi ilaa abaartan furshay goob nagati.
These effects mean that people do not have access to their basic needs or human rights and are struggling to survive. This is an injustice. In Guatemala, Indigenous communities are being denied their right to live safely and securely on their ancestral land due to violence, intimidation and eviction. Large businesses such as mining companies and palm oil and sugarcane plantations want to exploit this land for their own profit. The government issues eviction orders, and state and private security forces are sent in to force hundreds of families from their land. Extreme violence is used, and people have died because of this. Jose and his family were attacked by riot police, who burnt their home and crops. When families like Jose's attempt to seek help through the Guatemalan legal system, they are denied this right. As indigenous people, they are not treated equally under the law. Indigenous activists who stand up to defend the rights of their communities are often assaulted and even killed because of their work. In fact, Guatemala is one of the most dangerous countries in the world to defend land from exploitation by big business. This is the voice of an indigenous rights activist in Guatemala.
Cerca de las 11 a 10:30 aproximadamente, cuando llegaron un grupo de personas desconocidos. Yo salí a ver qué pasa. Directamente me atacaron a una bala en la cabeza.
For decades, the Guatemalan state has systematically attacked and intimidated indigenous communities in order to acquire vast amounts of land for state and private interests. They enable big businesses to abuse their power. This is driven by profit generated by the global demand for raw materials such as palm oil, sugarcane, and nickel, no matter the damage to people and the environment. This is an injustice. In the occupied Palestinian territory, Palestinians face injustice every day because of Israel's military occupation of their land. They face restrictions to their freedom of movement, unequal access to land and water, as well as intimidation and violence. In 1947, the United Nations passed a resolution that would divide the country that was then called British Mandatory Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. When the British left Palestine in 1948, the State of Israel was declared. As a result, more than 750,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced from their land and homes. Many refugee camps were set up to provide temporary accommodation for these Palestinian refugees, including Aida in Bethlehem. The key is a symbol of the right of return for Palestinians, the right to return to their land and homes. Many Palestinians, when they fled, took the keys to their homes with them. Daily life for people in Aida camp and other parts of the West Bank is dominated by the Israeli military presence. The separation wall, sometimes referred to as the apartheid wall, is a barrier which Israel claims it constructed for security, but which in reality separates communities and families and prevents access to land and space for many Palestinians. This affects young people like Lujain and Abrar.
إنه الاستعمار يعني عنا كل يوم إنه ما بنقدر نلعب، ما في مساحات كافية. إنه مثلا أنا ولا عمري زرت البحر، ما بنقدر نروح على الأقصى نصلي وقت ما بدنا. إنه كمان يعني إحنا من حقنا لعب زي أي ناس في العالم.
الجدار الفصل العنصري إنه مش إشي إحنا اخترنا نعيش تحته، إنه هذا الاحتلال فرضوه علينا إنه إحنا نعيش في الجدار حوالينا.
For Aya, Israel's military occupation can often be a frightening experience.
احنا مرة كنا قاعدين على ظهر الحيط، كمان يعني حتى لو ان احنا في الدار او برا الدار برضه ما بنحس بامان، لان الجيش في اي لحظة بيجوا بيرموا علينا قنابل غاز، بيدخلوا على الدار بفتشوها، يعني كمان برا الدار او جوا الدار ما بنحس بامان.
Since the Six-Day War between Israel and its Arab neighbours in 1967, the Israeli military has continued to occupy Palestinian land, including the West Bank and East Jerusalem. In addition to this, almost 700,000 Israeli settlers have taken over Palestinian land for their own use and created what are known as settlements. The UN Security Council and General Assembly have condemned Israel's decades-long occupation and stated that its construction of hundreds of settlements is clearly illegal under international law. Across the West Bank, Palestinians have to deal with restricted areas, military checkpoints, and physical barriers. This limits their ability to move around freely on a daily basis. For young people like Basan, this not only impacts their right to freedom of movement, it affects their right to an education.
طبعا في الشارع لما نروح بيلاقونا الجيش بوقفونا كالعادي بيعملوا تفتيش للشناتي باخذ الهويات باخذ مفاتيح السيارة بوقفونا ساعة كاملة فبنتأخر عن الدوام وأحيانا بيمنعونا من نروح.
In some parts of Hebron, the second largest Palestinian city in the West Bank, Palestinians cannot run businesses, drive cars, and in some cases even walk down the street because of restrictions imposed on them by the Israeli military. For Palestinian families living on Shuhada Street, this means they aren't allowed to walk out the front door of their homes. Despite this daily oppression, many Palestinians are standing up for their rights. Isa has been working with young people in Hebron for over a decade, helping them to peacefully resist the Israeli occupation.
We, the Palestinians, we don't want to stay as victims. We wanted to react and be proactive. So I decided to target the Palestinian youth, to start with them with that age, to convince them to use non-violence resistance. And really we do a lot of good work, to empower them with knowledge and experience and education about how to transform their anger from negative to positive and from violence to non-violence.
Unfortunately, the issue of violence remains a major problem. Violence by both Israelis and Palestinians continues to claim lives on both sides, but the number of Palestinians killed is far higher. It's essential to remember that the root causes of this violence lie in Israel's ongoing military occupation of Palestinian territory. But it's not just Palestinians who are resisting the occupation. Many Israeli activists are taking a stand against their government's treatment of Palestinians. Tal is an ex-Israeli soldier who was stationed in Hebron and witnessed the daily abuses against Palestinians. Today she works for Breaking the Silence.
So we are a group of former soldiers. Our work is mainly two things. One is collecting testimonies from soldiers who served in the occupied territories like us. And the second thing is our educational work, all of the tours and the lectures and the meetings. And we're trying to use our testimonies and our stories in order to educate people and to explain people what it means that we have military control over millions of people for over 55 years.
Basan is also an activist. She uses video as a way to document the day-to-day reality where she lives and how the Israeli military abuses the rights of Palestinians.
أنا أخذت كاميرا بخصوص إني أصور الجيش طبعا دفاع عن هاي الأرض يعني بدي أحاول أحميها بقدر المستطاع فبقوم بتصوير الأعمال اللي بيعملوها يعني بحاول أوصل رسالة للمناطق الثانية إنه إحنا هيك بصير بوضع المنطقة اللي إحنا فيها عشان نقدم مساعدة يعني على الأقل إنه نحمي هاي الأرض اللي إحنا عايشين فيها.
In the occupied Palestinian territory, Palestinians do not have the same legal rights as Israelis. This system of discrimination and segregation leads to violations of human rights on a daily basis, including house demolitions, land confiscations, restrictions on movement, and violence against civilians. This is an injustice. Human rights are universal and belong to everyone. The way the world is structured means that some people have more power than others, and some suffer more than others. This is evident in the denial of people's human rights. Unless we address the system that enables this power imbalance, we cannot have a just world where everyone has their rights realised. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So, how can we, as global citizens, work together to challenge global injustice?